What in the 20s is going
in the
on?
20s,
Think about
yeah.
the 20s.
What
baby.
plenty.
What in the 20s is
I
going
am
on?
here for my 20s,
baby. This is the 20s.
Welcome back to the podcast. I'm your host, Zamam Kize, and this is What's in the 20s, a podcast where you listen to me grow through it, baby. On today's episode, we're going to be speaking about basically who are you surrounded by? You know, I think sometimes we take very lightly the whole saying of show me your friends, I'll tell you your future and all of that. Or when people say that like you're the sum of the people around you, essentially. And I think I've always kind of grappled with that a bit. Like, what do you mean that my life and who I am and my future and all of that, a lot of predictions can be made just based off of the people around me, based off the environment in which I continuously occupy. You know, I always kind of felt like we all have our own fates, we all have our own destiny, we all have our own journeys. Why does what other people do have an impact on my own personal beliefs and all the rest? But it's like this is how I think about it, essentially. Your brain is constantly receiving information all the time. And it's taking in everything that you're seeing. It's taking in everything that you're hearing, everything that you're tasting, smelling, like all your senses and all the rest. And it's receiving that information. And by doing that, right, because you're telling it what to think, you're telling it what to receive, you're telling it what to absorb, essentially. And the more you do that, the more it begins to form things like your beliefs, your principles, your ideals, your perspective, the way you understand things, the way you interpret things, the way you navigate things and move and maneuver through the world and all of that. It's because of what you're constantly feeding it. You know, think of it like a beast. You know, whatever beast you're feeding, whether it's positive or negative, the more you keep feeding it, that's what it keeps growing and manifesting and just kind of making your reality, essentially. And so when we say things like, who are you surrounded by? Because that's probably having an effect on how you feel, what you're doing, your aspirations, how big you want to dream. I mean, you know, and we're speaking about like on average, right? The majority of the time, obviously there's exceptions to the rule, but it's like when you're constantly around people who talk about ideas, around people who talk about wanting to do this with their lives and wanting, like, where the sky just feels so, like, even limitless, to be quite honest, like possibilities and opportunities feel limitless, and you're constantly engaging with that kind of energy. I think what it does, it sets off a chain reaction into how you start seeing your life and how much bigger you want to do things and all the rest. Because I think that the group's belief in you, right, it's kind of based off of the average results that the group keeps producing, you know. So if the group constantly keeps vibrating on this kind of frequency where it's just down here and everything is just like mellow and calm, and that's what they're constantly seeing, that everybody else around, you know, this is what we're comfortable with doing, that's what becomes your benchmark or your standard or what you decide is just normal, because you guys are just very used to being at this place. And because of that, that's how much support and belief they show in you and what you want and your dreams and stuff, because this is what they're seeing is what we're all able to do. And it's a really strict thing you have to think about, right? Because obviously when you show what's possible, when you show what other things can happen, what more can be achieved, that type of exposure expands one's belief in you. That kind of exposure makes people more excited to want to invest in you, to want to pour into you. You know, I always say that like it's really telling when like the group around you, your support system, your friends, your family, whatever, aren't showing support for the things that you do. And I'm not saying that like it shows if they're a good friend or not and all of that, but I'm saying it shows their level of belief in what the things that you're pursuing, essentially. It shows how much they actually think that you're capable, your capabilities, essentially. And we also need to understand it's not even something that you should be hard on them for, but it's it's merely just a projection of what they're seeing the rest of the group or the environment being able to do. And if you're constantly in those spaces, I mean, I think of it like this, like your friends, your people, your whatever, your circle and all of that, they are enablers, they are enhancers, they are co-conspirators, they are prohibitors. And let me just explain it all now, what I mean by that. When I say that they are enablers, right? Say you're in a group of friends who every single weekend it's like, we're going to go to the same spot, we're going to do the same thing, we're going to, I don't know, I guess have drinks at the same place, or do, just that type of like, let's go partying all the time, let's go do this and stuff. And they enable the behavior of whatever that takes place, that's constantly goes on. If essentially facilitates an environment for you to partake in certain things that you might not want to and all of that, because you're just so used to being in environments that are conducive for those type of results to happen. When I say that they are enhancers, they like kind of enhance the experience of things. So say some of them are just used to like a really hectic or intense like drinking culture, something like that. And now you start hanging with them, you're going out with them, and that's what you do. You're regularly used to this routine of doing this with these people, and they'll basically heighten that experience. And so maybe if you're used to just like taking 1 or 2 drinks, you'll end up taking 4, 5, 10, because that's what you guys are regularly used to doing. It just feels like another day in the life, essentially. And it feels normal. Like I said, your environment and your group and your friends are creating a benchmark, a standard for how you operate, your boundaries. You're constantly negotiating basically what you're comfortable with, depending on the people who you're around. Maybe it's like, think about it, like when you're around your family, you behave in a different way compared to when you're around your friends and stuff, because the limitations with which you're allowed to act and behave and what you're allowed to say and not say. And that's what I'm talking about, that negotiation of who you are depending on who you're around. And so it happens in also different friendship groups or circles. I even think about like my work. So when I was in varsity, I was constantly surrounded with creatives and artists, and like constantly, it was just my friend group, it was the people I was passing by, it was the things we were doing on the weekend, all that. I was constantly in a space of energy where we were creating something, where people would just be singing, dancing, acting, performing. It was just that idea of like, let's make theater, let's make arts and all the rest. And then I graduated, and then I was on my own, and I wasn't around that type of energy, where we were constantly creating stuff. And now the language in terms of the things that I would talk about or do and see, it changes because of the group that I'm in. Like a lot of my friends are in corporate and all the rest. And now like I negotiated how much creativity I can like expand in the space, because I know that there's only so much they can relate to or understand. My friends always, my friends call me, since high school, they've always called me like a jukebox, because I'll find a song to anything and I'll sing about everything. And it was so funny because when I was in varsity, all my friends, all of us, we were singing at everything. There was a song that we could find. It was constantly High School Musical, essentially. And now when you don't have those type of groups, people look at you like, why are you always singing? Why do you always have like a jingle in your head? You always got something. It's just like, you're so like, yeah, I feel like you kind of adapt, right? And as I said, you negotiate the parameters with which you're allowed to be that type of expressive, that type of, how you engage, with that side of your brain because of the environment you're occupying, and that's what I'm saying. Different friendship groups offer different things, they provide different things, and they influence different things. And that's what I'm saying, like the people around you are really playing a role in how you understand things and see things and talk about things and engage with the world, essentially. And if you're not selective about how that looks like for you, if you're not making intentional decisions about who gets to be in your life, who gets to occupy most of your time, who you're spending hour-long phone calls with, your weekends with, your free time with, a lot of how your life will end up will be a result of that, and will be a result of just unintentional things happening because you weren't as selective as you could have been, or as just intentional as you should have been with your time, right? One thing that my friends and I always speak about is like just how much we really don't want to waste time with anything when it comes to, say, choosing a romantic partner, the work that you do, and like what you do in your free time. You don't want to waste it because you just can't get it back, you know, like once it's gone, it's gone. And we always want to make sure we're pouring into useful activities. And I think very often we find ourselves wasting so much time or just allowing time to pass or whatever because you're so used to just that comfort zone of operating where, I mean, this is how we do things, you know, and it doesn't even hit you, you know, that much that like, oh, maybe something needs to change. Maybe this isn't who I want to be. Maybe this isn't good enough for me. Maybe I, you know, want something different, and you're allowed to want something different. And I also want to speak about that another point too. You know, people like to say that like if your group isn't vibrating or whatever it is at the frequency you want it, they're not doing the work you want them to do, whatever it is, like you need to cut them off. And I don't necessarily think that that's the case. I think that sometimes you could be the one to help bring the group average up, if that makes sense. You could be the one to help inspire something, to spark something in the group, in your friendship circles, in the environment, whatever, that makes people want to be want to do more, want to be more creative and expressive, or whatever it is that you are able to offer, the value that you're able to offer into that space. You know, I don't think it's a thing of like, you know what, just cut people off, and because like I said, different friendship groups and people and spaces, they offer different things. And so there are certain spaces that could actually be pouring into you in a different way. So maybe you might not be able to express yourself in this certain way, but there's something that they're able to give you that is great. But you can, you know, pour in what you want, you know, what you feel like would add value, would help grow and build. And you know what I'm saying? Like, I just don't believe this thing of like moving alone. I believe that we exist in community and we should be able to uplift each other. We should be able to encourage each other and bring people with you, you know? And I know sometimes it makes the journey a little bit longer and harder the more people you keep wanting to join you on what it is that you're wanting to do and be and stuff. But I think sometimes not every relationship with someone is worth ending just because you're moving in a different direction. I think sometimes it could be an opportunity to help another person grow, help another person expand, see something, dream something, be something. And I think that if we constantly keep thinking that it's so important to be like, oh, I got here on my own, I did this thing on my own, I don't think there's anything particularly that special about saying things like that anymore. I think it's actually a lot more beautiful if we're able to say things like, we did this together, we came to this conclusion together, we came to this place of healing together. You know, people like to think we need to heal in isolation. Why can't, like, the reason I don't understand the whole healing and isolation thing is that, like, once you're healed, you go back into that environment that you know what I'm saying, that you left or whatever, you go back into that friendship circle, into that whatever, into the world. And I'm like, we need to find better ways of healing the environments we occupy so that we can heal the individual rather than just heal the individual and then think that they need to now just find better coping mechanisms when they enter the environment back again. I think that's it's really difficult and it's counterproductive. Even though it is possible, I know that a lot of Western society is just built on, you know, take individualism essentially. But I just think that when we say these things like, who are you surrounded by? Sometimes we should also think, what can I do to help my friend? What can I do to help grow the people around me? And it's not your job to, essentially, no. It's not your responsibility to, but I think that it is such a great virtue to be able to share compassion and empathy. And that's why, as much as you should be selective and you should be strict and intentional, we should also be understanding, because I would really hate for someone to look down on you and say that you're not operating where they want you to, and they just kind of like exclude you from things. And by being understanding, it's like, be understanding of circumstances and situations that led people to be that the way that they are, to think the way that they do, and see how you could show them something else, how you could just, I always speak about I use the term expansion, how you could just expand your perspective on things, allow people to be open-minded. How can we be a tool or an instrument in kind of facilitating those kind of environments rather than just saying, I don't want to be with you. I mean, obviously there are situations where it's just not conducive to maintain certain relationships with people because they are just unable, no matter how much you try, they're unable to meet you at the place that you need them to in order for you to fulfill your purpose. And that too is allowed. There are people who, no matter what, they're just standing in their own way or whatever it is. Or maybe it's nothing negative. Their journey just doesn't align with yours. And it's okay to say that, we don't need to keep trying to force our journeys to align. We don't have to keep trying to force our stories to be the same, to force this relationship. It's exhausting. It is taking so much more from you than it is pouring into you. And it is keeping you attached to a version of yourself that you're trying not to be anymore also. Sometimes when we're changing, and I mentioned this before, sometimes the reason we're so afraid of changing is because of the person we have to be in order to get the things that we want. The person we know we have to let go of in order to be at a place that we can achieve the things that we want. And it's a lot of sacrifices that have to come into play. It's a lot of letting go of people, of habits, of routines, letting go of things that you were so used to doing, and also things that everybody else was so used to seeing you do and be and comfortable with you being. And there's a lot of fear in sitting in the fact that those relationships will die and will end. A lot of I've seen a lot of videos of people who are essentially recovering alcoholics who have gone sober, and they always talk about how they've just lost so many friends when that decision happened. And I always find that so interesting. Why does that happen, that when you change your habits, when you change what you want for yourself, you lose your friends who are essentially supposed to be the people who want the best for you? Why does that why does that impact that? But it's essentially that we make friends based on the habits we keep occupying, based on the environments we keep doing. And so when you decide that there's a change that needs to happen in your life, within you, around you, with the things that you want to do, you also need to prepare for the fact that not a lot of people are able to journey on that with you. And that is a scary truth to grapple with. It is... I think about that too. Sometimes enforcing my boundaries, enforcing things that I want, it terrifies me because I know that it means I can't be around this person anymore. I know that some people have just not been, because of the way that we see things, they just won't meet me at the place that I need them to, and I won't meet them at the place that they're used to knowing me anymore. And it's really tough. It's really tough. It's going to cost you a lot of just a bit of chaos for a bit, but that's what change does, right? A little turmoil has to happen, and because it's transformation, and you're becoming something else. You're moving from a caterpillar into a butterfly, and that change, that process, it's not delicate. It's not the sweet, smooth, tender thing that happens. It's quite tumultuous. There's a lot that goes on into that change, into getting your new wings, your new pair of wings and stuff. And I think sometimes you just got to prepare yourself with that knowledge and knowing that if this is what you want, this is the cost of it. This is the price of it. But also adjusting the people around you to be able to support the things that you want. I'm going to keep using this term over and over. I think I'm going to use it a lot this year. Keep creating an ecosystem around you that supports your goals. Keep creating habits, systems, routines, friendships, relationships, time management, all of that around you in every sphere of your life that helps promote the things that you want, that helps facilitate or I guess guide you into being the best version of yourself, the person that you see yourself being, the person you want to be, the person you aspire to be. It's all about how it is that where you keep placing yourself essentially. And those are choices, those are decisions you have to make. What type of conversations are you going to keep having? What kind of things are going to keep coming out your mouth? What words are you going to keep saying? You know, what is it that you're using with your time, with your free time? Where does your money go? You know, it's all of these little choices add up to big things that define your life. And I think if we're not looking at our lives with that kind of microscopic lens, we're going to miss out. We're going to have a lot of blind spots, and we do have a lot of blind spots. You know, sometimes we just feel like certain friends we have to keep because of the history that we have, because of the long years of, you know, time spent that we have together. We feel like they have to stay because our parents know each other, because, you know, we make all these type of excuses, and sometimes they feel valid, honestly. But I think that if something isn't serving you anymore, isn't serving the place you're trying to be, and you're uncomfortable being here and, you know, operating here, you're being tasked with the responsibility to change. It is your duty, in fact, to actually live up to that and make a change. Or else, if you don't, you will remain stuck and you will have a death while you're still alive. You know, the death of your hopes and dreams, the death of your aspirations, the death of who you could be if you just made a decision. Because, you know, for the most part, everything you desire could literally be sitting on the other side of making this decision. Everything that you want, your breakthrough, could literally lie behind making one decision, one shift, one move from who it is you're around, what it is you're doing, what's occupying so much of your time and consuming so much of your energy. Everything that you're looking forward to could honestly just be behind the door of something. But if you're not ready to close the other door, you'll never be able to know what it's like to live on the other side. You'll never be able to know, to see, you know, and sometimes you might be feeling like, why am I still in this place? Why am I not where I want to be and stuff? It's because you have not shut the door on things that need to like release you, essentially. And yeah, I think that it's a difficult one. It's a difficult pill to take in, you know, like I'm basically telling you to like look at the people around you, look at how they support you, if they even support you at all, if they care about the things you talk about, if they're investing in the things that you want, you know, if they believe in you, like, you know, think about things like that. And if that matters to you, and if it does, you know, you're allowed to make that shift, you're allowed to communicate it, talk about it, but like create an environment around you that it's where you guys are just high energy in terms of what it is you want, what it is, you know what I'm saying? And not every friendship group is for that purpose. You know, some people really is to pour love into you, tenderness, care, healing. Some groups really are just to be able to listen to you, to support you. Like there's just so many different things, like I said, that people are able to provide and offer, you know. And so don't just think that every group in your life or whatever, their purpose is to pour into your dreams. Sometimes like your dreams have nothing to do with it. But it's just a matter of, do they still care about you? Do they still you know, show you love? Do they still kind of respect your boundaries? Respect that when you say, I'm not going to be going out on this day because I need to make sure I'm here for this meeting on the next day, and they're like, you know what, that's perfectly fine. They understand. That's amazing. That's the thing. It's like, that's a form of someone caring for you and supporting into you, where they don't make you feel bad for not being able to attend certain things because they know how important something else is for you, you know. As long as obviously in other ways you pull back, you know, like you can't just keep ditching certain people and call them your friend because you're so busy with other things. Like, it's like you need to find time and make time to still reciprocate love in their love language so that they can feel loved. It's a way of like you guys both sharing in this space and understanding that you both have two different journeys, but how can I best show you that I still care about you, I'm still here, you know, even though I might not particularly understand your journey, I might not particularly understand your dreams, but that's fine. I don't need you to understand it. I just need to know that you can be a friend through it. I need to know that I can count on you, that I can rely on you, that I could speak to you, I could call you if I'm having a rough day because of this thing I'm pursuing and all the rest. I don't need you to pour money into my dream or whatever. I just need you to be there, and that counts for something too. You know, don't let hustle culture and all the rest fool you into telling you what a friendship group should look like. You know, don't let social media and all the rest essentially misguide you into thinking that if your friends don't do this or hang out like this and go here and wear this or whatever, then they're not your real friends. That's absolutely not true either. You know, it's a matter of how can we learn to support each other in the different spheres of our lives and the different aspirations we have for each other, and how can we uplift each other and empower each other in the different aspects, you know, without feeling like it's taking anything away from, you know, the other, you know. But yeah, that's really all I wanted to say. Who are you surrounded by? As always, I'm sending my love. Goodbye.
What in the 20s is going
In the
on?
20s
Think about
here.
the 20s.
The 20s,
What
baby.
happened
See
in the
plenty.
20s? What in the 20s is
I am
going
here
on?
for my 20s, baby.
This is the 20s.